Hello and welcome. In this video I'll be taking a look at cockpit familiarization in the RAZBAM AV-8B Harrier II mod. So we're going to start off on the left hand side at the back. This section here, we've got our digital engine control system switch on and off. Next to that is the fuel shut-off lever, off in the up position, on in the down position. Next to that we have our pilot services panel and our engine fuel control, position 1 and 2. This will select which digital electronic control unit is in use at any one time. The aircraft carries two, one as a redundancy. Next to that is the engine RPM selector. High is reading the compressor RPM, low fan RPM. Up from that is the lift improvement device system, or the strakes and cross dam on the underside of the aircraft. This switch will have it in normal, which is automatic, or we can retract the cross dam. Up from that is the oxygen switch. We can have it in the on position or off. Next to that is the water dump switch. Of course the aircraft carries a water tank, so that when the engine is at a high stress level we can inject water into the engine to keep the fatigue life low, but getting a little bit more RPM out at the same time. Up from that is the external light panel. Now selecting these switches will not actually turn the lights on proper, but you can select which ones will come on when the main switch is flicked. So formation lights, that's the dimmer there from off to bright. Position lights, we've got dim in the middle, bright at the top, and a collision on and off. Auxiliary light or landing light on or off. Then up from that we have the fuel panel. This is our air-to-air refueling probe in or out. These are our fuel dump switches, one for the left hand side of the aircraft, one for the right. Then we've got our fuel pumps. We can have it in norm, or we can have it in DC operation, depending on which. If the AC fails, we can have it in DC operation, but that is the proper way of using the fuel pumps. Next to that is the fuel proportioner, which will make sure that the fuel is fed equally from all fuel tanks. Up from that we have the miscellaneous switches here. This is our main switch for the lights, external lights. So middle is for NVG, so if you're using night vision goggles you won't be blinded, and in the normal position for any other time. Up from that is throttle quadrant. So here we have the manual fuel switch. This is basically a backup fuel control. We've got rudder trim. We have a parking brake there, throttle quadrant obviously, stow stop or short takeoff stopper, and we can move that to whatever position we want the nozzles to stop at and not exceed, so 35 degrees, or we can have it in 60 degrees, which is a favourite. We can put that all the way back. Obviously we've got our nozzle lever there, and jet pipe temperature limiter on off there. This panel is the stability augmentation and attitude hold system, which is SARS. Stability augmentation switches are automatically in the on position for pitch, roll and yaw. We have a Q fuel switch here, which enables force feedback on based on airspeed and dynamic pressure. Then we've got altitude hold next to that. That will only come into play once the automatic flight control switch is in the on position, and then you can hold the altitude that you're at. Up from that is the gauges panel. We've got rudder and aileron gauges there. Our rudder pedal shaker switch there. We can have it in test on or off, and then our landing light, which has two modes, hover and approach, self-explanatory. Don't know if I forgot. Oh, there we go. Stopwatch for time to target, or things like that. And then our landing gear control panel, which is just here. We've got our flaps built-in test switch, our downlock overrides button, gear handle, jettison button there, our flaps on, off or reset. If there's an issue you can reset the flap system to get it working again, but that's your main on switch to make sure that the computer is reading that properly. And then we've got the flap position. Cruise 5 degrees, auto is usually 25, and then it will change automatically with nozzles, and short takeoff and landing, which is also 25 degrees, and will change with the nozzle position. Next to that is our gear position indicator panel. Green means they're down and locked. Amber will be either in transition or down and not locked. And then below that we've got landing gear emergency battery, and what we need to do is lift that if the gears fails. It's a one-shot system, so once you pull that handle the gear will drop and should lock in. Up from that we have the water panel, and this will tell you if you're in takeoff or landing or combat in the with the water in conjunction with the RPM of the engine. So if you're going to take off and vertically, switch that to H2O takeoff, throttle up. Once it gets to a certain RPM, water will start to be injected into the engine. Same goes with the landing as well. If you're coming in vertically or short landing, sorry. Then after that we have the armament control panel. So we have armament mode control dobber here, and that will change what state the armament will be delivered in. And we've got fusing, so like nose and tail, things like that. And that's used by the dobber. And all of these dobbers are pretty easy to use. We've got a quantity selector in tens and one in units there. And then we've got multiple release control here, so you can release more than one munition at a time, and then you can split the time between each release using the hundreds, tens and units here to change release time intervals. Next to that is the manual release control. Station select buttons here. Whatever armament you're using, you can select which station to use. Our stores jettison, so you can select which using this to which sort of thing you want to jettison, and then push the button. And over this end is the infrared cooling for things like AIM-9s, things like that. Master arm, self-explanatory. Flare salvo, so if you need a quick burst of flares you can push that and that will set a salvo off. And then we've got our HUD master modes, which we've got V-stall, which is what you'll start off in landing, takeoff and landing modes. Once you're in the air, nav to fly to whatever you're needing to do, and then when you're using weapons for air to ground, obviously there's your air to ground selector. This is our left multi-purpose colour display, not MFD. And then up the top here we have our option display unit, so that will come into play with various systems on the aircraft. Either side of the up front control here, or UFC, we have our advisories and caution lights and warning lights. On the up front control panel we've got a scratch pad here, our comm selector channels, volume, brightness, things like that. Underneath that we have our HUD control panel, so we can declutter or clutter our HUD using this flick switch here, and we can change the brightness and also switch it on with the dimmer here, and we can select whether to be in day, night or auto mode. Next to that is the video recording system. We can have that sort the brightness and the contrast out with that. Our altimeter we can have in barometer or barometric or radar. Now this panel here is our standby panel. So we've got standby attitude indicator, standby airspeed, standby and angle of attack, standby vertical velocity indicator and standby altimeter. We've got a course needle switch here, which will work in conjunction with the electronic horizontal situation display on the multi-purpose colour display. Well, that's a mouthful. And we've got a turn slip indicator there, and then underneath that we have our miscellaneous control panel. So forward looking infrared switch on and off. We have our inertial navigation modes switch there. Then next to that we've got video recording on auto or run. Next to that is video recording display select, so you can have it on one of the displays or the HUD. Dual mode tracker switch on or off, and that will work the sensors in the nose. Next to that is display computer mode select, primary or alternative or auto. Down from that we have our probe heat, and next to that is our mission computer switch. And then right below that we have our circuit breakers, of which nothing is clickable. And then we shall work our way back up to the top here. We've got our engine display panel there, which will display our RPM, our pressure in pounds per square inch on the ducts, jet pipe temperature, fuel flow. We've got our nozzles in degrees, and there's also we've got the water tank, how much is in the tank in pounds, and a green W will show here once the water tank is actually in use. And then we've got a brightness knob there for when we're in the dark. Our right multi-purpose colour display, and then we've got our electronic countermeasure panel here with our threat warning up here. So we've got an advisory, we've got SAM at the top, pretty explanatory. Continuous CW, which is continuous wave, which is ground tracking. AI for if we're being tracked by another aircraft, and AAA. Underneath that is radar warning receiver volume. Expendables, i.e. flares and chaff, and we can have that in auto, which is what I have in most of the time, or you can have it in up or down, so you can have the expendables shot from the top side of the aircraft or from down. And then after the down from that we have there is a mode that depending on the aircraft's velocity and things like that, it will fire flares out, but you have to be in a certain mode. I don't know if that's actually from the manual. I'm not sure if that's actually in play at the moment, or if it's still being worked on. Underneath that is the ECM jammer pod controls, and this is for when you're carrying the ANALQ164 RAF jammer pod, of which I'm not carrying at the moment, so this switch has no use at the moment. We have another clock here, but that actually tells the time. It's not a stopwatch of any kind. Underneath that we have the fuel panel. Tells you your total fuel there, how much is in the left side and the right side, and then we can set our bingo with this rotating knob here. With this switch we've got a built-in test up the top there, which will test all the systems on the fuel panel. We've got feed, and that will tell you how much fuel is remaining in the center feed tank. Total will be the total remaining in all feed tanks. Internal, for how much fuel is remaining in all internal tanks. Then you've got wing, fuel remaining in all the wing tanks, and then you've got inboard and outboard, which is for the external fuel tanks that you can carry, so you can read which how much fuel is in the inboard or the outboard ones. Under that we have the brake hydraulic indicator here and accumulator in pounds per square inch. So yeah, usually around about 3,000 pounds per square inch. If you don't have that reading, there could be issues with your braking system. Next to that we have our caution advisory panel, and next to that we have the cockpit cabin pressure altimeter. Under that we have our electronic panel, or electric panel. Got our DC voltmeter there, DC test switch, APU switch, engine start switch, generator switch, battery switch. And then below that we have our VUHF radio panel, squelch and volume knob there. Then we have the operational mode there, which will usually sit in TR plus G, which is transmit, receive and guard. Over from that is our channel and frequency, frequencies mode. We have our channel frequency control, ancillary mode switch and pointer here, and then load offset. So, and then under that we have our auxiliary communication navigation identification panel, or ACNIP, for the KY58 system. And we've got different modes here. We've got the we've got the KY2 or KY1 modes there. We've got our UFC or manual, program 1 and 2, our diphase and baseband switches there from 1 and 2. Our crikey, cipher modes in 0 and norm, RV1 and RV2 or remote codes. This is our volume knobs for ground and auxiliary, mic for when we're talking to ground crew. And then we've got our IFF here. We've got emergency and normal, 0 and hold. Under that we've got internal lights. We can do our light test switch. We flick that. This will light up the cautionaries and advisories and things. Then we've got instrument panel, console, flood, warning, caution lights. We can increase the brightness on those. And then behind that we've got the environment control system. So we've got temperature control here, which I usually slide into auto. Then we've got the forward equipment bay here, switch on and off there. Aft equipment bay there. Our cabin defog switch, and dump the pressure, cockpit pressure. Behind that we have the ground safety handle, basically arms the ejection seat. And then here we have the video recorder and night vision goggle storage, but it's not operable in any way. And then at the back there we've got the ground power controls. This is for ground crew operation, none of it is clickable. Then I forgot to mention that we have our lock there for the canopy. Clicking the canopy, either handle on either side, will make that go forward, automatically lock, and then to undo it, unlock it, and do that again. And then above that we've got our HUD, and that's about it really. And obviously we've got our control column there, of which nothing's clickable. So yeah, that's the RAZBAM AV-8B Harrier II cockpit familiarization. I hope that's been of help to somebody, and if you got this far, I appreciate it, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you in the next one.